Hey everybody, so I'm running around this world, just kind of finishing up all the collectibles and stuff, and I thought we could talk about it. Ego 24/7, of course. I put my TV on my balcony. We all did. Everybody danced on their balcony. It went on all night, and it never happened again. I would like to talk about the level design some more here. So I'm up on this random roof in the middle of nowhere, and there is a tiny little glowing thing, and when I click on it, it tells me a story. Imperfect dominoes, good for killing time. I was on a different roof, and it gave me cards, playing cards. And the idea is that I can tell a little bit about the people who were in this world by, the places they hung out and the things they did while they were there. It's environmental storytelling, right? But in a game like Fallout 4, the environmental storytelling would be a deck of cards and, a skeleton or two or whatever. Dominoes in this case. It would be something that existed in the world. In this game, that doesn't really happen. I mean, there's some environmental storytelling, and that sometimes you'll see booze or something. Someone will left, bottles of discarded beer or whatever. But in general, the environmental storytelling in this game consists of glowing icons like that for you to click on. I did have one more of these, I suppose. Let's do a blood bar skit. Talked about these, I don't know, last episode? The episode before? Everywhere you go, there's the hum. The whole island hums with something. He's talking about the next island. Maybe I think it's secrets. They take on a life of their own. They become tangible. It's actually the 25th island hums because it is electrically charged to keep demons away. But we won't go into that right now. No reality whiskey, made with corn, rye, and barley, smooth with a taste of brown sugar. Best enjoyed on a rooftop, which explains why it's here. So that kind of shows you the kind of environmental storytelling we can get out of this kind of loot. And that's really the key I'm trying to get into here. The difference between Fallout 4 and this game in terms of level design, well, there's a lot, but one of the biggest differences is that this game can cram an unlimited amount of storytelling into a small icon, something that can fit inside of a case like this. Now, in Fallout 4, you're going to open up every case you find. You're going to look around and try and find all of the things that there are to find. But in Fallout 4, none of those things have that much meaning. They're always loot. Like, oh, here's a microscope or whatever. But in this game, enchanting blood charm. Everyone plays for good blood. Strong blood. Red blood. The charm is said to strengthen your blood. It's interesting. It's something new and interesting. Because of that, the environmental storytelling in this game is much more tightly packed. You can cram it into very, very small areas of the map, to the point where the player will want to look in every cupboard, not because they expect to find a microscope or a rubber band or some other generic crafting loop, but because they expect to find actual environmental storytelling, some kind of story in the environment. And maybe the story doesn't have too much to do with where things are in the environment. Maybe you can argue that's not environmental storytelling or whatever, because it's not technically in the environment. It's kind of just contained within an icon that's in the environment. But either way, we're talking about telling stories while the player explores. And when you come down to it, something like, a blood bar skit is a much more interesting and deep story than you can get out of, two skeletons huddled around an empty whiskey bottle. And it's in a smaller footprint. And that's really the critical element here. Everything comes down to how often can you tell these stories, how fluidly, how much effort does it take to put them into the game world. And when you contain your stories into tiny little packets like this, you can put them anywhere. Here's Bear-chan. This is one of those things that once you start to understand how you can do this, you start to see it everywhere. You start to see the variants that you might be able to use And it's all coming down to how you want the players to treat your level, right? You got something like Assassin's Creed, where the map is laid out in full. You got icons for everything the player might conceivably want to do. But then you've got stuff like this, where I played through this game for hours, tens of hours, before I even realized there was a way to scan for stuff like this thing. You have to actually get this power. It doesn't exist for the first 10 hours of the game. And because of that, I was looking behind every corner. I was struggling to get up every house. What's on that? I can't quite see what's on the roof. I can't quite see what's on the balcony. And it was always just a fun struggle. A charm modeled after obelisks found on a Citadel planet in another solar system. And I never did that to that extent in Fallout 4. In Fallout 4, or any Fallout game, I would always open up all the stuff I could find, but it was never eagerly. I was never like, oh, I wonder what's behind the next door. I was like, okay, well, this room has 3 cases that I can open or whatever. And it was more out of a sense of optimization rather than excitement. Whereas in this game, I really enjoy the things I can find. I really look forward to seeing what's behind the next corner, what's around the next bend, because the things are unique and interesting. And of course in Fallout 4 they couldn't put in a lot of unique interesting things because they had to actually put them in. They had to load them into the game world using meshes and objects and that sort of stuff. Their environmental storytelling was skeletons, and because of that they really couldn't put very much environmental storytelling in. This game does have scattered beer bottles and stuff, but for the most part it's all crammed into glowing icons. And yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I just wanted to mention that all of this level design stuff, it's all about where do you want the player to go? How do you want the player to engage with your level? We talk a lot about purposeful level design, right? Like, oh, well, if you put something in the level, it's in the level for a reason, right? And obviously the player will want to engage with it in a specific way. This is where the player will go next. If the player notices this, then they can do that. It's very purposeful. But there's something to be said for this kind of purposeless game design. Ill-fated ring pulls. You can trade in collected ring pulls from drinks to get Crimson Acid merchandise. Looks like someone didn't have enough before the island ended. And I think that that's important. Understanding that you don't need to have too much meaning to your levels. You can reduce the amount of meaning in the topology of the level in terms of how it's laid out, if you can increase the amount that the player wants to see the whole level. If I want to look behind every corner, then I don't need the game to shepherd me carefully from corner to corner. I will eagerly pursue the corners. And that is something that most level design talks don't really talk about. They're like, oh yes, you can use these directional lines to guide the player's attention. And it's like, how about you just make the player want to look at all of the things in your level? If the player wants to see everything you have to offer, then they're going to see it. They're going to go around every corner. They're going to look at everything that you have to find. And that is the key to good level design. Something we don't really talk about very much, right?
Got it.
History of Enchanted Blue. So here's Enchanted Blue. Yeah, we know all about this by now.
What the hell?
So in this game, they've used all of these really highly compressed stories, these really compressed environmental storytelling beats, to make us want to explore the entire level, every corner, around every waterfall, behind every possible place. And because we want to do that, the level design itself doesn't have to be polished, it doesn't have to be purposeful. Obviously, some of the things still should have purpose, but in general, The game can just do whatever it pleases, and the level designer can move fast because I want to look behind all of these things. I don't need to be guided to look behind them. See, this is the same sort of thing that we would have gotten out of a Fallout 4 beat, right? You open up the treasure, you get loot items. But I went here from a weird location, in a weird direction, because I wanted to see what was here. I wanted to look here because the level had told me that there might be something cool, and there wasn't anything cool in that particular case. But there will be next time. You know, Skinner boxes, you don't want a 100% return rate. Otherwise, they'll stop. It's when it's randomized or, you know, arbitrary that you get the rats pushing the button until their arms fall off. The same idea here, but instead of rats pushing buttons, it's players wanting to explore the world. If the players see that every time they explore the world, there's a chance they're going to find something interesting, not just another rubber band, then they're going to want to explore that world. They're going to explore that world aggressively, and it's going to help your level design, because if your level design is weak, the player's going to be okay with it. The player's going to be like, I don't need to be guided. I want to see everything. So just, you know, let me. And I think that that is a very powerful tool in our arsenal. It doesn't mean it's always the right choice. There are lots of times when you don't want the player to engage with your level in quite that way. But it's something we don't see very often. It's an approach that is underused, and I think that that might be because people don't realize that it's possible. You can make the player want to see everything. You can make the player guide themselves into every nook and cranny of your level. All you have to do is make sure that your level has the right stuff. And in this case, that means environmental storytelling that's crammed into every corner. And it's only crammed because it is so cheap and small. If it was, you know, actual meshes that had lots of thought put into them, they wouldn't have been able to do it. They wouldn't have fit in the map, and it wouldn't have fit in the timetable.
How?
On my planet, there's this musician I like, creates music that takes me away to another place.
Glad to be back.
I'm not caring about your musician, though. The conversation's about me. Whatever, I'm gonna go smash some bottles. Well, I've been rambling on, and I'm not sure how coherent I've been, just because I've been so focused on collecting stuff that I might not have explained things very well. Ah, darn. You'll have to let me know if you understood everything I said. Here's Lydia's hangout spot, where she paints stuff. I'm not sure why she does it here, right next to Witness to the End's apartment, but she does. I mean, in theory, Witness to the End might have the same hobbies as Lydia, but it seems unlikely. He likes plants. Anyway, I think that's more than enough time just of me wandering around talking about level design. Yeah, so I will go ahead and finish up some of this stuff, and I'll see you next time.